Thank you for joining Wars of the Rosies as we continue with part 53, lesson 52 of the Illuminated Faith, Mystical Interpretation of the Gospel of St. John by R. Swinburne Clymer. Lesson 52, Esoteric Interpretation of the Crucifixion as an Historical Event in the Life of Jesus. Ever since the world began, when the time was right for a new leader or a new Messiah, a leader or a Messiah has come forth. In each case, he has comprehended conditions at a glance, has taken hold of them and tried to change them for the better. Thus, we find that when a leader of men is necessary, forward steps a man, one who may not seem to have been prepared previously, and leads on to victory. A cycle ago, at the beginning of the Christian era, conditions had come to such a pass that few things were regarded sacred, and few of the deeper truths were understood by recognized leaders in the religious world. The Pharisees and scribes, men then in power, although having the laws of Moses, refused to live according to them. Consequently, their lives and characters did not personify the true teachings. They were as blind leaders of the blind, and religious was a form, merely a conventionality. Either the world must have a new leader and a true advocate of the divine law, or it would drop into hopeless materialism, a condition that has no respect for the laws of God, morality, honor, or anything else that makes man different from the beast. The prophets had prophesied that a great teacher or Messiah would come, one who not only should understand the law, but should live it, and therefore manifest it to the world. The people therefore looked forward to the coming of such a teacher. In due time, in accordance with the law of demand and supply, a great soul was born to the one prepared to give birth to him. This child, being born under proper conditions, was placed with the proper people for instructions. Among a class of people called the Essenes, he was taught the divine law. The instructions and the training to which he was subjected required him to live according to the law, not according to the letter of it, but according to the spirit as well. He had to comply with the divine standards as they pertain to relations with mankind, usually thought of as etherical or moral codes. But what is of even greater importance, he made application of the law in another way. Namely, he made conscious, deliberate, intelligent effort to develop the divine spark of a soul within his nature, already highly developed and unfolded, that it might attain to full and complete individualized soul consciousness or Christhood. After Jesus had partly accomplished this, it was time for him to go among the people and there, through actual work and service, to finish the development of his soul so that he could in truth become the Christ and exemplify to humanity the Christ potency as the Savior of the world. We learn of his ministry through the records left us, how he went about doing good, how he taught men the way, the truth, and the life, and how he healed them and taught them that it was for his true and faithful followers to have like power and even greater. Through continual obedience to the divine law, he more and more purified the flesh until his nature was no longer subject to the desires of the flesh or the earthly tendencies. Through habitual complacence with the law of positive, constructive thought, through right thinking and right living in every department of life, through constant obedience to the laws of love and forgiveness, even the elements of his body were being constantly transmuted into the qualities of soul. Even the very elements of the body were becoming pure eth. As this process of purification continued, he gained more and more power and could do greater works. But as he did greater works, so was the wrath of those in power turned against him more and more. Religious leaders considered that there was but one way to save their standing and influence, and that was by the death of him who was gradually taking the people away from them. To this end did they scheme. Jesus knew this. But he understood the divine law. He realized that they could do him no real harm. He understood the possibility of spiritualizing or etheanizing the body, a truth in which he had thoroughly trained himself under the guidance of the law itself. He knew that if the body was sufficiently purified, and if the powers of the body and mind had been used faithfully to build an immortal soul, efforts of others to take his life would be futile. They might put him through something that resembled death, but he realized that the conscious soul within, which was the true power of the universe, would lose consciousness only for the moment. He knew he would be able to rise up the body since it was really become part of the soul. He knew that true mastership enables one to call together the disintegrated and scattered elements of the body, if need be, for through a prolonged process of purification, they become pure essences. This knowledge, this consciousness, this realization preserved Jesus in tranquility of soul, even when the narrow-minded rulers were plotting to take his life. What Jesus foresaw as his experience actually took place. The climax of opposition that resulted in the crucifixion became for Jesus the climax of glorification. Though crucified, dead and buried, his body was only passing through the final fires of purification. It stood the test. The elements composing the body had passed from the realm of the physical to the realm of the ethi, or the ethereal. They had become pure eth. Only for the moment of transition did the soul lose consciousness. Had the body been mere physical substance, had it still contained carnal elements, he could not have raised it. But there was nothing carnal remaining. The earth principle had been completely transmuted into qualities of eth, or soul. Its essences had been thoroughly transmuted into qualities finer, lighter, purer, and more ethereal than the physical. Consequently, the body was not of earth. Through the process of purification, it had become lighter than the earth, so that he could take it up and use it at will. It is recognized as a chemical law that only that which is as heavy as the earth can be held to the earth. That which is lighter tends upward, continuing to go upward according to its lightness. That is, according to its spirituality, or better, its solarality. The lightness and the purity and the fairness of the essences composing the body make them submissive and obedient to the call or command from the soul that has been consciously using them as a vehicle on the earth plane. We are told that Elijah ascended to heaven in a chariot of fire. What was this chariot of fire? What but the spiritualized essences of a pure body? What but ethi substance? What can be a chariot of fire other than the cloud or aura of pure eth that envelopes the soul that has attained Christhood and complete mastership? This is the climax of illumination. This, the goal of Christhood, to ascend to the Father in a chariot of fire. This, the ultimate end and aim of the great work, transmutation of the gross and the earthly into the fiery cloud of purity and divinity. When Mary Magdalene first recognized the risen Christ, he said unto her, "Touch me not, for I am not yet ascended into my Father." Why did he say, "Touch me not"? Because his newly arisen body, like a battery freshly charged with electricity, was alive with pure eth fire. To touch it at that moment would incur danger, as there is danger in touching a live electric fence. As the risen master mingled among earth conditions, his body became enveloped in grosser elements, which served as a shell of protection, a protection to bodies of inferior development with which he came in contact on the human plane before his final ascension to the Father. To the many, these esoteric truths are veiled, for the undeveloped soul cannot comprehend them. But to the illumined soul, they throb with life and power. Remember, esoteric truths reveals itself to the understanding in proportion as the soul itself has become a dynamic center of life and power. Thus, Jesus exemplified full and complete mastership. We are ready to accept it as a historic fact that he was crucified, that he literally passed through the transition called death, and that his body was buried in the tomb. Furthermore, we are to accept it as a historic fact that he literally and truly raised his body from the dead and that he took it up again as a vehicle of communication among men. Further still, we are to accept it as a fact that Jesus thus demonstrated to the world a power that belongs potentially to all men, and that the possibility of full and complete mastership is given to all. Such mastership is offered to all alike: mastery over the self, mastery over one's own thoughts and feelings and words and deeds, a mastery that ensures such purity and nobility of thought and movement that the earth principle may be transmuted into pure eth. A mastery that interferes with the freedom of other lives is promised to no one. Jesus did nothing to prevent the taunts and the mockery of onlookers, but he manifested Christhood and true mastership in the tenderness and the compassion that enables him to say, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." A charlatan or a mere wonder worker might have exercised an abnormal and perverted willpower to coerce or to restrain or to prevent the jeers and the taunts of disbelievers. The superiority of the Christ is seen in the fact that, in the midst of mockery, he preserved a tranquility of spirit that enabled him to lay down the body and take it up again. All this Jesus did, not to demonstrate a power reserved for him alone among mortals, but to prove and to illustrate to the world the power that belongs by divine right to mankind generally. This he could do only because he had been scrupulously obedient, even in the minutest detail, to the divine law of his own being. This he could do because, in small things as well as in great, he had been obedient to the law of love. Let each one who reads these lines ponder well their import and seek to understand the Christic law of his own inner being. And, in so far as he understands the law, let him obey. Thus will the light come to him. Thus will the Christ flame radiate its warmth of love and its light of understanding throughout his soul. Thus will the Christ flame radiate its warmth of love and its light of understanding throughout his soul. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment. And if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Rosies. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.